Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Lily's Little Life Corner. As you can see, it's a different background today. I hope the lighting is okay, but I wanted to make this a little bit cozier because I just want to change up my podcast, I'm missing stuff to put up on my walls, but that'll come, I promise. Anyway, today's episode, we will be talking about yet another K-pop situation. Everybody shut up. Okay, I don't want to hear it. I said in my last episode that I really wanted to change the direction of my podcast to what it was originally meant to be. So, everybody shut up. Okay. I also hope the audio is okay because I need to talk in a lower tone since it's nighttime, and also my microphone is no longer directly in front of my face, so let me know what you think of the audio and if it's good enough. I think I can fix it either way if it's not loud enough, but let me know. So, in today's episode, we will be talking about Lisa from Blackpink and her new album, and this album has caused quite a controversy, so I wanted to talk about it and insert my 2 cents if you guys are willing to listen. I don't know. I was gonna say if you guys are willing to purchase my 2 cents, but that doesn't really make sense. You can't buy money. Okay, so people online are saying that Lisa's album is very lackluster and disappointing, and to be honest, as a Lisa bias, I can't disagree. But before we get into the episode, disclaimers as always. First and foremost, I want all of the Lilies to know that I'm not hating on Lisa. Like I said, she is my bias, so I want it to be very clear and very known that I'm not hating on her. I really like her as an artist and as a performer, and I want the best for her. And after seeing this kind of situation evolve, clearly this is not the best for her. This is not the best situation for her. So, I wanted to share my opinions on how she could probably make it better. But again, what do I know? I'm just a person on the internet, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, like I always say. And also, a lot of my opinions will be heavy on the speculation side of things. And although they might be educated guesses based off of what Lisa herself has shared about her life, they are still guesses. Okay, I can't know if I'm right or if I'm wrong because I don't really know Lisa like that. Like I said, I'm just a person on the internet. So with that out of the way, let's first get into some of the things people are saying online. Number 1 is people are saying the album sounds superficial. Number 2, Lisa hasn't figured out her style yet and it shows. Number 3, the lyrics are super basic. Number 4, the features were disappointing. And number 5, she's a culture vulture. So before I get into anything else, I need to talk about the culture vulture comments because those are very important to touch on. In the K-pop industry, there is a very big problem with producers taking heavy inspiration from Black American cultures. Lisa is from YG, which is a K-pop company, and YG as a company is kind of notorious for having idols and trainees who have said the N-word. Mind you, all of these idols and trainees have been Korean, full 100% Korean. They might have been born outside of Korea, but they are Korean, okay? So for example, we have Jennie, who is also from Blackpink. She has said the N-word. We have Julie, who was a trainee in YG, but then left YG and joined Kiss of Life. She has said the N-word. And then we have Ahyun, who is in Baby Monster, which is a group under YG. All of those people have said the N-word, okay? I wanted to interject here to tell you guys that I'm linking a video in the description that's going to talk more about YG Entertainment and their artists and trainees saying the N-word and otherwise being culturally insensitive, because I feel like I'm not qualified to talk about it in depth, but that video does a really good job at talking about these things in depth. Lisa herself has had previous blackfishing and cultural appropriation scandals. So for example, during her Money music video and promotions, she was given braids. And more recently, during her Rockstar promotions, a photo shoot she did made her skin appear way darker than it actually is. Now, you can say that these things weren't Lisa's fault necessarily. Idols have very little say on what they can and can't wear in music videos, promotions, photo shoots, etc. Lisa has no control over how the photographer edits her pictures or what she can wear, or so K-pop stans would make you think, okay? Blackpink, when it comes to styling, is an anomaly because they have a lot of say with what they wear and what they look like. Jennie has shared in an interview, I think on Vogue, where she was reviewing her most iconic outfits in Blackpink. She has said that whenever she didn't like a piece of clothing, she would tell the stylist, I don't like this piece of clothing, and they would remove it. They would change it up. Not to mention, the more famous a group is in the K-pop industry, the more say that they have. And Blackpink is definitely up there with the famous K-pop groups. Okay, they are the biggest girl group in the entire music industry all over the world. It used to be Little Mix, but it has been taken over by Blackpink. So to say they have little to no say in what they wear is kind of ridiculous. Not to mention, Lisa is under her own label currently for her solo projects, which means she has even more say on what photographers she chooses. And a lot of her stans online were saying that, well, it isn't Lisa's fault. The photographer just edits her pictures that way, or the photographer just edits their pictures that way. He edits everyone like that. Okay. But Lisa had a say in choosing that photographer. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's not that she's being forced to use this specific photographer. She could have chosen any other photographer that would not have made her skin appear darker. Other people are saying, well, Lisa is from Thailand, which means she has naturally tan skin. But if you look at pre-debut pictures and videos of Lisa, and even the behind the scenes of the photo shoot itself, you will see her skin is nowhere near as dark as was portrayed in the photo shoot. So to say that cultural appropriation and blackfishing and overall just theft of black cultures is rampant in the K-pop industry would be an understatement. Whether idols have control over their image or not, all of this goes to show that the industry at large is very willing to steal from black American cultures. Cultures that, by the way, have been formed out of oppression and for freedom. For example, cornrows were used during the enslavement period in the United States, and they were used kind of as maps to let other slaves know which paths to take to freedom. If you want to learn more about the history of cornrows in the United States, I will leave links in the description in the show notes, as always. Same with links about the origin of rap and how rap has been used for freedom of expression among black communities. These are two things that the K-pop industry will steal from black American cultures. And the reason why I'm touching on this is because a lot of K-pop stans, a lot of K-pop stans will ask, well, what's the big deal that my favorite idol is wearing braids? Or what's the big deal that my idol is rapping in a very shitty way, mind you? It is a big deal because these things have heavy history behind them, and you can't just be using them willy-nilly, especially if you're not part of that culture. So it's important to call these behaviors out when they happen because, like I said, they have heavy history behind them and they're not just for aesthetic purposes. There's a very real history of oppression and fighting back that most K-pop idols cannot relate to. Not to mention, this is kind of where I get a little confused because Korea has its own history of oppression and fighting back and succeeding against their oppressor. But you never see any Korean K-pop idols talk about that or use any of the tools that were used to fight against oppression in the current day and age. They don't make reference to that history ever, and there is a reason why. The reason that is because the industry not only censors a lot of K-pop idols, and Korean netizens don't really like that their K-pop idols have political opinions or opinions just in general. One such example would be Yeonjun from LE SSERAFIM reading a quote-unquote feminist book. Korean netizens tried to cancel her so fast. And I'm putting feminist in quotes because if you read feminist literature, that book is overall, from what I've heard, I haven't read it, so don't take my word for this, but from what I've heard from people who have read that book, it's kind of an introduction to feminism. But because it's ever so slightly feminist, it's still too feminist for Korean netizens, specifically men in Korea. Now again, don't take my word for it, I've never read that book. It is on my to be read list, but from what Korean netizens were saying at the time about this scandal, it seems as though this book, I think it's called Breast and Eggs, is not a radical feminist book, but it's seen as a radical feminist book in Korea because feminists are so oppressed and silenced in Korea. Does that make sense? So that's probably a reason why Korean K-pop idols don't talk about their own history of oppression. But another reason why is because there are Japanese K-pop idols in the industry, and because there also are Japanese K-pop idols, a lot of Korean K-pop music streams in Japan, and Japan is a really big consumer of Korean music. And Japan, by the way, was the oppressor of Korea. Still kind of to this day continues to be, because they don't really, if you tell them, hey, you really hurt Korea, most Japanese citizens will tell you, and what about it, you know? I highly recommend all of you guys to learn a little bit more about the Korean history, and it might explain why North Korea is the way that it is. I'm not gonna lie. But moving on, because K-pop is streamed in Japan and Japan is a big consumer of K-pop, a lot of Japanese netizens, whenever a Korean K-pop idol speaks out about the history of Korea, will get mad at that, and they will say, well, you're ungrateful, let's boycott, etc., 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 right? But that learning all about that and learning why Korean K-pop idols can't speak about their own history without being canceled leads me to ask the question, if they're so censored that they can't even talk about their own history of oppression, what makes them think they can use the oppressive history of another culture that's quite literally a sea away, right? An ocean away. What makes them think they can use someone else's oppressive history as aesthetics when it shouldn't even be aesthetics? I know it's not similar, but I can't believe there's no similar outrage when a Korean K-pop idol speaks about the history of oppression of Korea versus when a K-pop idol steals Black American culture as aesthetics. It does not make sense to me. This is something, though, that also has been said with Jennie's new album, specifically Jennie's new song called Like Jennie, where the choreo uses an African dancing style called Ampiano. I think it's how you pronounce it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like Jennie is the only song in her album that features Korean lyrics. So a lot of people were wondering, well, if it's the only song that features Korean lyrics, what are you doing adding an African style dance into your choreography? You should be using traditional Korean dances. Korea has a rich history, even outside of their own oppression, and it is a shame that K-pop idols that were born and raised in Korea feel shame when it comes to speaking up about their own history, or maybe even don't feel shame but just disregard Korean aesthetics as something that they can use in favor for using Black American culture as aesthetics. But anyway, now that we've clarified all of that and explained that the K-pop industry is in fact, if not racist, then definitely culturally insensitive, we can now get more into Lisa's new album. But by the way, the K-pop industry is most definitely racist and colorist. Do not let anybody tell you different, okay? Anyway, this is about Lisa's album. So, the first complaint we will get into is the superficiality of it. I'm not gonna lie, you guys. I listened to it a few days ago, and with all the love in my heart, I say it is very superficial, and I personally was very disappointed because this is not what I was expecting out of Lisa whatsoever. And I'm gonna be so honest, I forgot what most of the songs sound like because they all blend together, and I can't tell the difference between the last song that I listened to and the new song that I listened to. The lyrics are also incredibly basic. There was a lot of repetition in both the choruses and the verses, and the songs just got old after a minute of listening to it. Like, if you listen to a minute of a song, you've listened to the entire song. You know what I'm saying? Another one of the complaints surrounding this superficiality claim was that there was so many la la la's in almost every song. You will hear Lisa singing la la la, right? And it's true. It's true. The lyrics, like I said, incredibly basic. The other complaint I wanted to touch on briefly before really getting into the why her album was so superficial is the features. People think the features were lackluster and disappointing. I personally partially disagree with this take. I think the strongest song on the entire album, the strongest song out of all the songs in the entire album, is Born Again featuring Ray and Doja Cat. The song is incredibly dynamic. The voices blend together so well. Each artist gets her time to shine on the song, and it's overall just a really, really good song. But to be honest, I'm not really surprised that it's a really, really good song because Ray was the composer and original producer of the song, and it was adjusted to fit Lisa's album. But the director and the producer and the composer did a really good job making sure that all the voices blended together, and it was just a phenomenal song. I also really like New Woman featuring Rosalia, but I'm not gonna lie, the song's playability is not high enough for me. It does get repetitive after a while, and I do have to take breaks from it, but overall it's more enjoyable than songs on the rest of the album and songs that have other features. Aside from those two songs though, every other feature incredibly lackluster. Megan Thee Stallion's feature for me was particularly disappointing, especially after her collab with Twice. Strategy featuring Megan Thee Stallion was an amazing, amazing song that, I mean, originally it was an amazing song, but then adding Megan Thee Stallion onto it elevated the song even more, which in my opinion is what features should be. You should feature an artist on a song to elevate it and to make it better than it already is. With Rapunzel, which is the song on Lisa's album featuring Megan Thee Stallion, with all the love in my heart, again, no tea, no shade, Megan's part was the only part of the song that I really liked. It's like Strategy can be listened to without Megan and still be enjoyable, but Rapunzel cannot be listened to without Megan to be enjoyable. I was finding myself skipping to Megan's part because the rest of the song, like with every other song on the album, was very repetitive, and like I said, once you listen to a minute of the song, you listen to the entire song, right? I also forgot about Tyla's feature. I completely forgot about Tyla's feature. It's called When I'm With You. It was a better song, but again, it faced the same issues that all the rest of the songs on the album feature, and that is that it was incredibly repetitive. And again, I had to skip the song because I was like, okay, after a minute, I was like, okay, I understand. I get it. I get the point. I just never expected such a bland album from Lisa. That's really not what I expected. But let's talk about how this happens and why. How does an artist that's been in the industry for 10 years make an album that is so bland when the artist's reputation is anything but bland? This is why I did not expect Lisa's album to be so bland. It's because her reputation in the industry before putting out this album was that she was an incredible, dynamic, adaptable performer, and it didn't really matter that this is gonna sound so shady, but a lot of netizens were kind of in agreement that it didn't really matter that Lisa couldn't sing live because she could perform well. If you watch her performances, incredible. She's an amazing performer. How does her album, her very first album, turn out this way? To where she can't even perform it to her usual standards. And I'll get into what I mean by this in a bit, but let's discuss why and how this happens. I have to remind you guys that all this is going to be heavy speculation on my part, but I personally think I have the answer to why her album is so superficial. I actually have multiple answers. This is a multiple choice test. Anyway, okay, the first issue is the fact that I personally believe that Lisa doesn't really know who she is, not only as an artist, like a lot of people were saying, but as a person. This is something that has been brought up many times by other TikTokers surrounding this conversation and TikTokers who have been discussing this. But some people believe that this is because she grew up rich and with a lot of privileges and has never had to experience the difficulties of poverty and rejection, right? Because she grew up rich, she went into a company with a lot of resources and wasn't told no. She was never rejected. But personally, I'm going to disagree with this because being self-aware has nothing to do with your social class. Poor people can be incredibly insecure, but so can rich people, right? Rich people can be self-aware, but so can poor people. Richness and poorness can play a factor into how you view yourself, but there's no correlation, nor is there any causation between poverty and richness and how you view yourself. Minnie from G Idol is a great example of why this theory doesn't make any sense to me. Minnie is also from Thailand, and her family is quite literally royalty. Her family might be even more rich than Lisa's family. She comes from a long line of royals in Thailand, and yet the difference between alter ego from Lisa and her by Minnie are night and day. You can tell that Minnie really knows who she is and she knows what direction she wanted to take her album in. With Lisa's alter ego, it feels like the album is all over the place, which again does not make sense to me. Minnie's album is a lot more expressive and has a lot more depth. Lisa's album, like I've said before, is very superficial. I actually personally believe that Lisa doesn't really know who she is as a person because of things that have been said to her throughout her career. So for example, before she even started her career, her mom told her that her forehead was ugly. So from that point forward and up until to this day, Lisa has had straight across bangs that cover her forehead. This to me, in my very speculative opinion, again, I do not know who Lisa is as a person, but this to me screams somebody who is very insecure about their looks and about who they are as a person. If a comment that your mom made when you were very young still affects you to this day, you need to work through some things, okay? And to be honest, to be fair, maybe she has worked through these things. Maybe she's no longer insecure about her forehead, but decided bangs are my look. That is what I'm known for. And to be like, that is what she's known for. Memes have been made of people saying, it's so funny, like we've never seen her forehead. Her forehead must be worth millions of dollars because we never see it. It's always protected by her bangs, right? So maybe she sees the bangs as part of her image, but that tied in with her album shows me, as someone who has kind of experienced something similar, shows me that she hasn't quite worked through a lot of her things, and I can't really blame her because as soon as she went into the industry, suddenly it wasn't her mom. Suddenly it was millions of Korean netizens talking about how she was ugly. She would never fit into the beauty standards that Korea has. She would never be like her Korean counterparts in Blackpink. She was called ugly. She was called the visual whole of the group. And even after she got plastic surgery, because by the way, plastic surgery is very, very normal in Korea and among celebrities, and even just among normal people, plastic surgery is very normal. But even after she got plastic surgery to fit into the Korean beauty standards even more, she still had comments, and to this day still has comments from Korean netizens telling her that she will never be enough. Mind you, she's been in the industry for 8 years. Like, she's been in Blackpink for 8 years, but she's been in the industry as like a trainee and everything for over 10 years. But yeah, her album was kind of a dead giveaway for me that Lisa is a very insecure person deep inside. She might come off as confident, she might come off as self-assured, she knows who she is, etc. But I think she's just recently starting to work through her issues. In fact, it wasn't until 2023 that we finally saw her forehead, because she let her bangs grow out and she split them like to the side, like curtain bangs. And so I think as of 2023, she's really been working on her insecurities. You guys might be thinking, okay, well, if she's worked on her insecurities, why is her album still superficial? I'm gonna get into it in a little bit, okay? Let me go back to the idea of Minnie versus Lisa, and this isn't to pit two successful women against each other, but with what I said about Minnie, right? Well, Minnie knows herself and her family's also rich. Some of you guys might say, well, yeah, but Minnie has a clear passion for music. And again, I'm going to disagree with that, because Lisa is a performer. She's a dancer. She is, to me, and in my opinion, incredibly passionate about music. I say this as a dancer myself who is also passionate about music. It doesn't really make sense for you to be a dancer without being passionate for music. I think the disconnect that happened here was that Lisa's passion for creating music shifted into Lisa's passion for just music in general, like listening to it, being a part of it, performing it, that kind of thing. And this is where another disconnect comes in my opinion, is that Lisa went from being passionate about learning her own style of music, learning what she liked. For example, if you watch her old vlogs where she is doing Lily Film, I know, my name, but no, it's called Lily Film because Lisa, Lily, right? That's why her fans are called Lilies. But if you look back at her old Lily films, you will see that she has a very specific genre of music that she dances to. But I think the disconnect that happened here was that Lisa's definition of her favorites kind of blurred. Let me explain. Sometimes, as artists, as people who create things, it's hard for us to recognize that our story needs to be told in a different genre than the genre that we're used to consuming. So, for example, in my life, I personally spent a good chunk of my life hating poetry. But I know that if I wanted to release a story that talked about myself, my life, it would have to be told in poetry. And I know this because it is vague enough for me to include the life lessons that I've learned without revealing any identifying information. And it is also sectioned into small parts that are easily digestible. Personally, I think if I wrote an autobiography with my entire life story, it would bore readers, because it's not like I'm, a very interesting person. Maybe the life lessons that I've learned are interesting, but who wants to read about my life from birth to present, just full of life lessons, you know what I mean? So that's why I'm saying I think it would be better suited in a book of poems rather than an entire autobiography. Another thing is that I really enjoy reading romance and fantasy, but number one, I've been single for 23 years, literally my entire life, so my life story would not fit in a romance genre. And number two, I'm a real person living in the real world, so it also would not work for fantasy. You see what I'm saying? Just because I like to consume romance and fantasy doesn't mean that my story and the story that I have to tell can fit into romance and fantasy. And this is where I think Lisa's disconnect came into, is that she likes listening to a certain kind of genre of music, and she will dance to that genre of music, but then she will also try and create music in that genre of music. When in fact, her story needs an entirely different genre that she may not be used to listening to or may not be used to creating. Personally, I believe that Lisa's story would best be told without any of the alter egos just point blank period, okay? And if you don't know, Lisa's album was supposed to be, like, the concept of the album was supposed to be about alter egos. So she was supposed to have, I think, 5 different alter egos, and each song was supposed to represent a different alter ego. Like I said, the songs blended into each other. That concept did not. It was poorly executed. If that was a concept, it was poorly executed. But again, I will talk about this a little bit later, okay? Don't you worry. So if I were making Lisa's album, I would do away with the alter ego concept altogether. And I would opt for songs that were bumping, okay, that you could dance in the club to, but the lyrics were heartbreaking, or at least deep. I would really love to tell Lisa's story with deep lyrics, but a bumping beat. I think that would fit her the most. Think Angel of My Dreams by Jade, okay? That song, if you just listen to it without really thinking about the lyrics, it sounds superficial, it sounds chaotic, it sounds fun, it sounds like something you would listen to at the club. It sounds like Lady Gaga, okay? But once you really pay attention to the lyrics, once you really hear them, or even if you Google them and read the lyrics online, you'll see it tells a heartbreaking story about Jade's experience as a musician in the music industry. Not only that, but every time you see Jade perform it, she performs it differently. And she tells the story of her experience differently. So, for example, she can perform it in a fun and chaotic, choreo-centered way like she did in the Brits. Or because the lyrics are so deep and sad, she can perform it in front of an orchestra with a really sad sort of vibe to it. The same thing with the music video. The music video is very chaotic and it matches the fun nature of the beat. But in the video, there's also heartbreaking scenes interspliced with more funny and chaotic scenes. And I'm not gonna lie, it's what I would have expected for Lisa. It's what I would have expected out of Lisa. I really did think she was going to focus more on dance. It's actually impressive to me, for lack of a better word, that Jenny, who was targeted for being a quote-unquote lazy dancer, has more choreography in her album than Lisa, who is the main dancer of Blackpink. Not only the main dancer in Blackpink, but one of the most highly appreciated, highly sought after dancers in the entire K-pop industry. Before they went on this little hiatus to focus on their solo projects, the entire K-pop industry was talking about how Lisa was one of the best, if not the best, dancer in the entire K-pop industry, because her dancing is phenomenal. Okay, so it's impressive to me that Jenny, as the quote-unquote lazy dancer of the group, has more choreography than Lisa, who is the main dancer of the group. And it's also weird to me that instead of sticking with dance, Lisa stuck with rap. One of the lines in Rockstar, which is the first song of this album that Lisa released, was, "La la Lisa, make your favorite singer wanna rap." I disagree. I say this again with all the love in my heart. No tea, no shade. I really disagree. I think Jenny is more likely to make your favorite singer wanna rap, right? I think for Lisa, it should have been make your favorite singer wanna dance. Because truly, like, when I'm watching Lisa, I want to dance too. I want to learn all of the intricate choreographies that she has learned, and I want to learn them at the pace that she learns them, and with the perfect execution that she does them at. And with Jenny, whenever I hear her rap, I want to rap too. I want to learn how to do that. I can't rap though, because I have a speech impediment, right? But that's what I'm saying. Like, there's that disconnect there. And it comes back to what I said earlier, where I really feel like Lisa does not know who she is as a person and what she personally likes for herself as an artist. Because there's, again, speaking as an artist myself, there's a genre that you enjoy consuming, and there's a genre that you enjoy making. And then even outside of that, there's a genre that your story needs. And it can be very different among all 3 categories. Like, for example, like I said, I really like consuming fantasy and romance. I like making romance. not so much fantasy. Like, I like more real world fantasy, because I know some of my writer friends are watching this and they're gonna be like, Lily, what do you mean you don't like fantasy? You're literally writing a military romantasy right now. I like more fantasy that is more grounded to reality. I don't think I could write about dragons or castles or anything, but you know what I mean? I really enjoy making romance. But the genre that my story needs for me to tell my story, if I so wished, if I were so inclined, would be poetry. But as an artist, you really don't have to tell your story. I think back to like Taylor Swift and her Folklore album, where she does 3 songs: Betty, Cardigan, and August. Most of Taylor Swift's songs are about her personal life, okay? But these 3 songs are completely, it's a made up story. It tells the story of Betty, James, and Augustine and their little love triangle, and it tells the story of how James is a piece of shit. If I'm gonna be honest. But you know what I mean? Like, sometimes as an artist, you don't really have to tell your own story. I don't have to tell my story through poems if I really don't want to. I'm a very private person. I don't think I would ever do that unless it was like in this vague kind of anonymous way that I'm talking about through poetry, right? Where instead of telling you guys, well, this event happened in my life and that's the life lesson that I learned, instead I would do it like metaphors, right? Maybe I'm talking about the time I almost drowned. So instead of telling you guys like, I almost drowned and I almost died and this is the life lesson that I learned, I would tell you guys like, life is so fleeting. It's like a drop of water that evaporates in the sun, or something along those lines. And then that would be the life lesson that I learned from me almost drowning, right? I wouldn't, that's what I'm saying. But as an artist, you're not forced to tell your life story. But for me personally, if I were in charge of making Lisa's album, I would have told her story in a very metaphorical, fun, almost easy to miss, easy to ignore way. I would have told her story with racism in the industry, because don't let anybody tell you that Lisa has not experienced racism in the industry. She has, because she's a foreign K-pop idol. Wow, I really said foreign, like, I said foreign, like, with all the hate in my heart, oh my god. But, right, like, she has experienced racism because she's a foreign K-pop idol, so I would have told her story regarding that, but I would have done it in what I'm saying here. Like, I would have done it like how Jade did Angel of My Dreams. Maybe not exactly, but, right, I would have done it with a bumping beat so that when you're out in the club and you have, like, 3 drinks in you, you don't really care about the lyrics. But then when you're at home and maybe some Karen told you go back to where you belong, go back to where you came from, you can listen to the songs and relate to the song. That's what I personally would have done if I had been in charge of the album. Let's talk about another disconnect in Lisa's album, and this is just the entire alter ego concept. And this is where I told you, hold your horses, because I'm gonna come back to this and I'm gonna talk about this. So personally, okay, don't twist my words, I'm not saying that the alter ego concept cannot be done successfully. I think it can be done successfully. And I think it would have been really, really fun to see out of Lisa had she connected to the concept. Had she had more time to really develop these alter egos and really assign different sounding songs to each alter ego. Somebody on TikTok actually said it would have been really fun to see this alter ego concept done if Lisa had added in her dance, which is her specialty. That is what she's known for in the entire K-pop industry. It would have been really fun if she had done like different genres of music where she could have danced to each song differently. So she could have done a more hip movement heavy song for When I'm With You featuring Tyla, right? But the song obviously would have had to been a little bit different, so it could have included the beats necessary to dance along with that. Maybe she could have done something similar to ballet with Elastigirl, right? Because there's a lot of stretching involved in ballet. You're showing you're really flexible with ballet, and it would have worked really, really well with Elastigirl. She could have done tango for a different song. She could have done Thai traditional dance with a different song, maybe a song that was all in Thai. The possibilities are endless. Okay, she could have done hip hop with Future, which is her feature. It's called Fuck Up the World featuring Future. She could have done hip hop with that. It can absolutely be done successfully, but the thing is, not only did I not think that Lisa was committed to the alter ego concept, but also I don't think she had enough time to do the alter ego concept. And I think this is for two reasons. Number one, she really only had a year to do the album. They didn't even have a year. I was going to say they had 2 years. They did not even have a year. But they had to spend some time looking for music labels that would sign them and then creating their own music labels for their solo activities. Like, music labels is probably the wrong word, but like they had to create their own labels so that they could keep getting like sponsorships from brands. So, for example, Lisa is Celine's ambassador, so she had to create her own label so that Celine could, sign her and continue the negotiations with Lisa. And then they also had to come up with the concept of their album, and then they also had to execute the album and plan the entire album. They didn't even have a year to do all of that. So that's reason number one why I think she didn't have enough time to really commit and cement this alter ego idea. But the second reason is very speculative. Okay, do not quote me on this. Do not say, oh yeah, this totally happened, because we don't actually know. But I think the original concept for the album was a new woman concept. And this is backed up by the fact that both Born Again and New Woman feature that idea in some way. New Woman featuring Rosalia has New Woman in the title, right? And the whole song she's talking about how she's healed from bruises, she has overcome the misogynistic beauty standards, she's overcome the stalking that has come with the industry, and she's become a new woman because of it. Born Again, in the music video, they define Born Again as a new woman who was born, basically. And the entire music video is about women throughout history. So, for example, witches being burned at the stake, Eve from the Adam and Eve, Eve from the Bible, etc. All different kinds of women. I think even Tonya Harding, all women throughout history that have been hated on. I think Tonya Harding has been hated on for a good reason, just by the way, but you know what I'm saying. Women throughout history that have had very hard lives, and because of those hard lives, they have been able to be born again and have been able to become new women. So this whole time that New Woman and Born Again are coming out, I'm thinking, oh, the album's totally gonna be about Lisa's hardships in the industry and how all of the hardships, and this is why I'm so disappointed, because like I said, it just felt like the entire album was going to be about her hardships in the K-pop industry, the racism even. I was hoping she would really touch on the racism, and then nothing came out of it. It really feels like they had the New Woman concept, and then somewhere along the way they backed out of the New Woman concept. And I think, again, this is very speculative. I have no proof of this, but I personally believe that if in fact the original concept for the album was going to be this New Woman concept, they backed out of it after Lisa got hate for thanking only her fans, Lily's, for her success, and also after she only posted pictures of herself for the Blackpink 8th anniversary that they did. I think that's when they backed out and they had to scramble to come up with a new concept that would still fit the New Woman theme that was going around, but that wouldn't be so obvious, right? I think they were spooked from making a New Woman concept because Korean netizens, they're very sensitive when it comes to talking badly about not only your company but your own group. The only group that I have seen get away with talking badly about their company has been G-Idol and Stray Kids. Oh, actually every other group under JYP. But everyone else, they talk badly about their companies and they're hated on by Korean netizens, right? From what I've seen. So it makes sense that they backed out from making this New Woman concept. Personally, I would have really, really preferred her keeping up with this new woman concept that she was going with, not because I'm messy, not because, I wanted her to spill the tea on whatever was going on with YG and Blackpink behind the scenes, but because, like I said, it feels a lot more honest to her. It really does. And listen, I'm not saying that Lisa can't make a fun album, but the issue with Alter Ego that I also find is that it takes itself a little bit too seriously to be a truly fun album. Like, for example, if you compare it to Jade and Angel of My Dreams, and even It Girl and Fantasy, you can see that Jade executed a fun song really, really well because she knew her strengths and limitations as an artist, and she also knew the genre and the story well enough to blend them together. To me, again, this goes back to the fact that Lisa thinks of herself as a rapper before she thinks of herself as a dancer. If I had been in charge of making Lisa's album, I either would not have included any rap at all, or I would have had her write her own raps. Interjecting here again to explain that I don't think Lisa should think of herself as a rapper, because in my personal and humble opinion, she was given really, really trashy rap verses compared to Jennie. Her raps really seemed like sabotage from YG. So I understand why Jennie thinks of herself as a rapper. I do not understand why Lisa thinks of herself as a rapper, since all of her rap verses that were given to her by the company were absolute trash, in my humble opinion. Which is also to say that that's why I believe Lisa should be writing her own raps in her album, because she wasn't writing her own raps when she was under Blackpink in a much more meaningful and thoughtful way. I think if you look at the difference between the raps in Rockstar, New Woman, and Born Again, those rap sections are a lot more deep than the other raps in the rest of her album, which to me lends credence to the fact that Rockstar, Born Again, and New Woman were part of a different album concept than the rest of her entire album, okay? Also, not to mention, her rap position in Blackpink really felt like an afterthought to me. It felt like because she was one of the members that spoke fluent English, and because Rosé, who is also a member who speaks fluent English, was also already taken, like, as a vocalist, they kind of had no one else to give a second rap position to. So Jennie was already the main rapper. They needed a second rapper in the group, leading to making Lisa the lead rapper. And also, this is just off topic, but it's really weird to me how YG invested so much money in teaching Jennie how to rap and giving her lessons with some of the best rappers around the world and some of the best lyricists around the world, only for them to not give her any rap parts and not make her write her own raps. And they instead switched the rapping over to Lisa. It was really weird to me, especially now, seeing how Jennie has really included rap in her album. Like, her album really is rapper Jennie. I don't know, it's just weird. Also, okay, I know I've been singing the praises of Born Again, but I personally believe that if Lisa really wanted a super fun album, and an album that wasn't deep at all, and just like a, here's a fun party album, here's a fun dance album, like a dance-focused album, like a lot of her fans are saying, I don't think she would have included Born Again or New Woman. I think Rockstar is fine. I also don't think she would have included Moonlit Floor or any of the slower songs. I think she would have kept up with the theme of Rockstar, right? And maybe Rockstar would have been her hip hop, and then a different song would have been a different genre, and all would have been genres that you can dance to and have fun to on stage, or even, like I said, in the club. But yeah, again, to reiterate and to kind of wrap this all up, because I've been talking for over an hour, I personally would have loved to see her using metaphors in her songs about being like a bird trapped in a cage, right? Talking about, and it would have been metaphorical enough that netizens would have speculated, like, is she talking about her life in Blackpink? Is she talking about YG as a company, or that YG stuffed her in a cage and didn't let her outside of the cage? Or is she talking about Korean netizens and how Korean netizens have put her in this box of foreign K-pop idol, and she feels like she's no longer allowed to leave that box. She feels like she's no longer allowed, or was never allowed, to be a true K-pop idol, and maybe that's why she is making songs that are not in Korean. Right? I think that would have worked amazing for her, especially with the, like I said, deep lyrics, bumping beat. I think I'm really disappointed that it did not go that way, because especially after Rockstar and New Woman, I really was expecting more dance heavy, dancey songs. Born Again wasn't really a dancey song. Moonlit Floor also wasn't really a dancing song. I would have forgiven Born Again and New Woman if the rest of her album had been a lot more dancey with deep lyrics. You know what I'm saying? But overall, the entire album just feels disconnected from the first 4 singles versus the rest of the album. I guess I meant like first 3 singles, because it's Rockstar, New Woman, and Born Again. The rest of her album feels really disconnected from that concept. So, in conclusion, her album at best is misleading and all over the place, and at worst, it's the personification of censorship. And it's the personification of censorship, because I really feel like she was going to go a different direction, but she felt like she couldn't go a different direction because she was going to be censored by Korean netizens. Just imagine she was talking about racism in the industry, and Korean netizens Google translated the lyrics from English to Korean. They would have had a field day with that one. So personally, that's why I believe the album is superficial, but I also think this album is a massive learning opportunity for Lisa, and I really hope she takes the lessons, and I hope she stops, if I am in fact correct, I hope she stops trying to please the Korean audience. If I were in her shoes, which big shoes to fill, but if I were in her shoes, I would definitely not listen to what Korean netizens had to say, because listen, I would be sitting here thinking, you guys have been hating on me for 10 whole years. I'm not going to listen to I'm going to make whatever music I want to make, right? I really wish she had taken the route that Jennie had taken. Jennie said in an interview with Zane Lowe that she sat down and decided that her album was gonna be hers no matter what anybody else thought. It didn't matter if anybody else liked it, she was gonna make it her style. And I really wish Lisa had done that as well, because like I said, Korean netizens have been mean to Lisa, and if in fact Lisa made this album out of fear of how her original concept was gonna, if all of my speculative things are true, I wish she would have said, fuck the Korean netizens. Okay, you guys have been racist towards me. You guys have been calling me the visual whole of the group. You guys have been calling me ugly. You guys have been telling me that no matter how much I change my appearance, I will always be looking like a Thai peasant. I will always be looking like the poorest of the poor in Thailand. You guys have made me feel ashamed of the place that I come from. You guys have made me feel so bad. I'm gonna talk about how you guys have made me feel in this album, whether you like it or not, okay? And it would have been a good conversation starting point for the entire industry as a whole. I think it would have been a great album to keep the conversation going and to really get a raw first-hand experience of a foreign K-pop idol in Korea, and how foreign K-pop idols are treated, and how toxic Korean netizens can be, and how racist Korean netizens can be, right? And personally, I would have done so without the rapping, without the cultural appropriation. I think you can use your own culture, woman, okay? Thailand also has a rich culture, a rich history, and truly, I think if this New Woman concept had come to fruition, or if I had been in charge of this album, I would have stuck with the New Woman concept, and I would have changed Lisa's image to be more about Thailand. And this is another reason, just off topic, I'm going off script. This is another reason why I think her album and the original concept was supposed to be about her becoming a new woman and her embracing all of the insecurities that Korean netizens projected onto her. It's because outside of her album, she has been doing a lot of press and a lot of promotions in Thailand, and she's starring in The White Lotus as a Thai character, and she's speaking fluent Thai, and that has surprised a lot of netizens because she normally doesn't really do that. So personally, if I had been in charge of the album, I would have kept going with that. I would have gotten rid of all of these superficial songs with the la la's. I would have done away with that, and I would have really focused on Lisa as a Thai K-pop idol who has faced a lot of criticism and a lot of bullying for her nationality. And I would have done like most songs with a bumping beat and then a few ballads to really showcase her vocals, because I'm not gonna lie, you guys, I think Lisa has a really strong vocal tone, and I think she has a lot of potential for being able to sing. And if I had been in charge or in Lisa's management team, I would have been like, okay girl, we're getting you some vocal lessons, and you're gonna sing these powerful ballads, and you're gonna make everyone in the West love you, because what's something that people in the West can relate to? Racism, unfortunately. Okay, and I'm not saying like we can relate to being racist, but we can relate to having racist people come up to us. As a Mexican woman, I can relate to having racist people come up to me. As, you know, Thai people would be able to relate with racism. Korean Americans would be able to relate with racism. Chinese people would be able to relate with racism, specifically racism in Korea. Normal Koreans that haven't bleached their skin can relate to racism and experiencing racism. You get what I'm saying? So it would have been such a powerful album, and it really would have pushed her fame worldwide, just kind of all over the world, because people all over the world can relate to racism. There's a lot of colorism in a lot of parts in the world, and so she could have taken that route, and she could have talked about how she was forced to lighten her skin, and yet even after lightening her skin, she still wasn't accepted in the industry. Final closing thoughts. I think YG really limited the potential of not only Lisa but the rest of the Blackpink members by not letting them in the studio more. Think about Lovesick Girls, okay? That is a song that Jennie and Jisoo had a say in writing, and look at how many awards it got. Look at how much praise it got compared to all the rest of their songs. It is such a different concept for Blackpink. And, you know, it's not significantly different, but in the grand scheme of what Blackpink is, Lovesick Girls is a very risky move, or was a very risky move, but it ended up paying off because me personally as a fan, I could listen to the difference. I was like, oh, this is not a normal Blackpink song. Somebody else made this song. So I looked at the writing credits. Lo and behold, Jennie and Jisoo had a say in, like, they have writing credits and producing credits. So I really do think YG sabotaged all the members by not letting them in the studio and letting them have more control over their songs. Even like Rose, who was more often in the studio and was more often writing songs and producing songs, even she had censorship on the part of YG because, and again, this is speculation, but if you look at her two singles in YG, so On the Ground and Gone, there are a lot of things that make it a YG sounding song, even though she has writing credits and producing credits. Versus if you take a look at the rest of her album, Day and Night, again, she had writing and producing credits in both. But Day and Night, if in YG, it just sounded like a repetitive YG song because ultimately producers at YG, maybe Teddy, because Teddy really likes that style of music, but maybe Teddy took over the project and made it not a Rose project, but a YG project. Whereas her album, Rosie, is entirely just Rose. Anyway, that is all that I have for this episode. If you guys want to listen to a Patreon exclusive Lily's Little After Show, head on over to my Patreon page. You will be able to access the after show for just $5 a month. And if you're not really interested in the after show, then check out the $1 a month tier. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Please remember to check out the links in the description and comment below what you think of Lisa's album and what you think about what I said. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.